Sup, this is David, and today I want to talk to you about cycles of internalization, cycles of the becoming paradigm. So in order to get good at something, don't you have to kind of quote unquote look like a fool in the beginning in order to get good at something? Well, when you want to constantly be improving yourself, when you want to constantly be growing, you have to go through these cycles of looking like a fool many times over and over again. And it's not really looking like a fool. You're just stuck within that perspective that you might look like a fool to other people, but you're not really looking like a fool. So I'll give you an example of this, right? So let's pretend like a new person, let's say like an adult, is trying to learn snowboarding. Naturally, in the beginning, they're going to be falling many times, right? But do you judge somebody because they're falling many times on their snowboard? It's like, no, you don't really judge them. You're just thinking, oh, that guy is probably new. He's gonna probably fall many times, you know? I've been there. I've been a beginner too. I fell many times as a beginner too. So you're not really judging them. So it's not quote unquote like looking like a fool. It's just, you're just gonna have to want to fall sometimes in order to learn the craft. So that's the same thing here. We're gonna have to fall many times over when you are learning anything new. And so we're gonna have to go through these cycles of internalizing stuff. In the beginning, you're gonna fall many times until you get to a point where you've internalized the learning so that you don't fall anymore. But then at another level, maybe you're gonna wanna go on a ramp and do some jumps. But at that point, you're probably gonna fall again, right? So you're going through these cycles of internalization. You're learning, you're falling, and then you've internalized the next step, and then you fall again on the next paradigm over, right? And we wanna continuously be doing this stuff. And we kind of have to, quote unquote, look like a fool in order to get to the next level. But the problem is, most people get complacent. They get to a point of being good enough and they stop there and they stop improving themselves because their ego is getting in the way. Their ego is like this big success barrier that blocks them from getting up to the next level. And that's the point I'm trying to make. It's like you have to break the ego. You have to kill the ego. It's like killing the caterpillar in order for the butterfly to live, right? You have to kill that stupid ego because it becomes one of the biggest success barriers. And that's the problem with most people, is they stop at good enough. And I believe this is a Jim Rohn or a Tony Robbins concept. He said that good is the enemy of the great. Because when you get good enough, you get complacent. Like you resemble some sort of skill in a craft. Let's say, for example, snowboarding. You get pretty good at the craft. You get pretty good at some of these smaller jumps, but then you get complacent and you stop improving yourself. You get complacent and you don't take on the bigger jumps, or maybe like the half pipe or whatever next trick that you're learning. And so that is the enemy of the great. In order to become great, you have to be willing to sacrifice a little bit of that ego, okay? You have to be willing to fall and become a beginner again. This is why I call it cycles of internalization. And this is coming from the framework of the becoming paradigm. A lot of us think that once we learn something, and then we internalize it, that is good enough, and then they move on to something else. And I guess for a hobby, that's okay, but if this is something that you constantly do, if this is your craft, the skill that you're passionate about, then you have to be willing to become a fool over and over and over again. I think it was Tiger Woods, right? He changed his swing multiple times. Imagine that, like you're at the top of your game, but then you go out and you change your swing. And when you change something, you pretty much have to become a beginner again, don't you? Because you have to relearn all of that muscle memory from scratch again. And I think it was Steph Curry too. He had to change his shot. But then in the long term though, it was because he changed his shot that he became one of the best shooters in the world. So it's looking like you're taking many steps backwards, but in the long term, you're taking, 12 steps back in order to go 120 steps forward. So you have to be able to think about it like that. Okay? And you have to be able to sacrifice that ego, because the enemy of the good is the great. So you want to kill the good in order to become great. And that's the becoming paradigm. I think it was Sam Ovens that said that. He said that we're not just human beings, but we're human becomings. We're constantly growing, constantly. And you also want to keep working on yourself, right? Pretty much until the day that you die, you pretty much want to be like this, because that's where the fulfillment of life comes into play. Fulfillment of life is always in continuous improvement, always towards progress, and always being involved in the process of something. So love being made, love destroying the ego, love destroying the old version of yourself in order to create that new self. We should constantly be dying to our previous self in order to become an even better version of ourselves, a better self. So that's all I had for this video. Hope you found value out of this one. And if you found some value, I would appreciate a like and a sub would be appreciated. And I'll talk to you in the next one. Peace.